Cool.
Should we do a little?
Perfect.
All right, cool. Hi, guys, and welcome again to kind of a different episode of the Unsigned Berlin podcast. We had some technical troubles with the last round of guests. Well, not really, just the podcast. So this is our kind of fill-in episode for that while you guys are waiting.
Yeah, so we're pushing back the episode that we recorded by a week, which is okay because the artist coincidentally pushed back their release date anyway, so it's still going to line up. And just doing this as a filler in the meantime.
Yeah. So just wanted to have we also had a few requests on maybe some episode or an episode just devoted to the hosts. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to try that out and see if it's a success.
Yeah, and then we were thinking about putting 15 minutes before each episode first as well. And you said doorbell sessions?
The doorbell sessions, yeah. That'd be cool.
Just to have a little talk about whatever's either happening in the news or just about the podcast or whatever before the artists come on, which I don't know, I like. And I like it when hosts do that as well on other podcasts, like Mark Maron does that.
Oh, yeah.
So we also wanted to talk a little bit about the podcast and why we wanted to do it and what the kind of goal is and where we see it going. So I had been thinking about it for a while before I came to you.
Really? Wow, yeah.
Yeah, just like a few weeks of being like, I think this actually makes a lot of sense to do because we're in a situation where fortunately we can do it with very little budget and where we're kind of surrounded by a lot of artists that need a platform that don't have one, which is increasingly an issue with social media where you need video content all the time. So that was kind of the idea, and now, we're just trying to improve that platform and hopefully provide something of value to the people we have on, and of course it helps for ourselves as well for promoting our own projects. But
totally, yeah. And why Unsigned as the name? You were telling me a little bit about like the independent nature of the podcast and.
Yeah, I mean, the like independence of artists, I think, was in my mind a lot anyway from my own side of things, trying to figure out where I want to go in my career and looking at labels and thinking, well, they're not providing as much value as they used to. Where they used to be, you didn't really need them to get your CDs out to stores, to get your records or whatever, physical items to places. And now that's not the case anymore with streaming, and it's kind of a weird shift where labels are still trying to figure out what they can provide for artists apart from stability, which even then is kind of a manufactured fake stability because you're given a loan. It's not even like money that's actually invested in you because you have to pay it back after X amount of time, and then also will typically get ownership of your masters and everything. So independence is increasingly becoming a valid option for artists, and there's a growing like middle class of artists that can kind of earn a reasonable amount and stay independent. And then also just trying to help that be a possibility for more people, hopefully, that wouldn't otherwise have a platform. And I like to stay in that world as well, where I think you more get artists that are like really focused on the creative vision of what they're doing instead of money making, which to me is usually the art that connects to me more, which I think probably applies to everyone. But
I think it's a great community builder, especially because we have access to so many artists now that are up and coming.
Yeah.
So, and I think also as an artist, and you know this feeling too, sometimes it's hard to get that gratification, when you're working so hard on a track, and it's maybe, we're pretty small now, but we're hopefully going to grow more. Hopefully, and it would be nice to give people something to kind of look forward to after they release their song or finish. That always helps when you have some sort of like music video or promo thing that's gonna be that thing to look forward to. So
and on the other side, hopefully bringing artists to people. Like if you're trying to find new music, especially if you're based in Berlin, it's always nice to have that like kind of location and culture connection, and hopefully provide that for listeners that want to find new music or get a more kind of long form connection and actually have a real understanding of who they're listening to and everything, instead of kind of quick 7-second snippets from TikTok or wherever you find new music.
Yeah. I feel like I have a problem too with, especially even on Instagram, you know, having stuff on Instagram already, but then people are like, I've never heard your stuff. Like, I've never heard it. And this is a great opportunity for people to really hear each other's music other than, you know, listening sessions in a school setting or whatever.
Which is a really closed off environment.
Super closed off. So it's a nice kind of outreach thing for that.
Yeah. And finding people that are more likely to have an overlap of interest when it comes to music. Because a lot of the time I'll show friends stuff that I made, and I mean, you'll get feedback, which sometimes is super useful, especially conceptual feedback is typically pretty useful. But then in terms of taste, sometimes you get feedback and you're like, yeah, but I mean, it's not meant for you. So that taste thing is like not that useful for me to put into what I'm doing. Yeah. Which has been the opposite for the podcast so far. I think all the feedback I've had has been super, super useful.
I agree. It's been really, really cool. And we're always up for more feedback as well.
Yes, please.
So please DM at Unsigned Berlin, unsigned.berlin.
Yep.
You're watching this here, so
you found it somehow.
You found it.
There's comments on everything, I think.
Oh.
I think.
Are there comments?
Spotify doesn't have.
Do we have any haters? Section. Oh my gosh. I want to know.
No, it's all still very positive kind of support.
I want some
things.
haters.
I don't.
But that's when you know you're like,
I'm going to be the one going through all of the comments. So I'm good.
Isn't that when you know when you're doing well? Is when you start to have a few people who are like, this sucks.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's a good way to look at it, if nothing else.
Because maybe it's reaching people that are completely out of the sphere of...
Yeah, true. It means your reach is good because you're reaching people that you didn't want to.
Yeah. For our first hate comment, we should
celebrate it. We'll have it, not to encourage it.
We should do that. Yeah. Have a little special episode.
Yeah.
Dedicated.
And we put out a couple posts with some info about ourselves, asking for questions. And Jack said what went wrong. Jack is on our next episode. He was a producer for the song that's releasing next week on the 24th, I think, on a Thursday, which is unusual. But it was some baby pictures of us playing instruments and stuff. But I think that's not a valid question. Hopefully I don't think anything went wrong, but it's a valid point to direct ourselves in, and like what brought you to Berlin and why music production?
Well, originally Berlin wasn't on my radar at all. I wanted to go to Sweden because I read a book called Inside the Hit Factory by John Seabrook in high school. And it was just all about the Swedish mentality, like the Swedish pop mentality. And I was really fascinated by Huron Studios with Max Martin and just the genius of that. So that was my first choice. And then I soon discovered that there were very few opportunities that weren't in Swedish, and it was mostly summer programs. I was looking more for like a school, some sort of higher education thing. So that really wasn't an option. So then I kind of moved on to it was always going to be abroad, studying abroad, but I also wanted to live there. It wasn't like a year thing and then I'm going to bounce back. Yeah. I wanted to go and live somewhere. So just kind of started looking at schools, found a school. They had multiple locations, thought about Brighton first. And my parents, we kind of were talking about it, and I come from a pretty small beach town, and Brighton's kind of got that same beach town vibe, not quite at the level of California. So, but I was like, why would I go from beach town to beach town? So let's try something super different. And Berlin was just kind of this really far off like more out there option.
Different language as well. Yeah,
that was also a big thing, I think a lot of American students really want to go towards an English-speaking
and fair enough. I understand
which is fine, but that was an extra challenge that I thought was cool and, an extra layer. So Berlin, and don't regret it. I've loved it ever since. And then as for music production, I'm a songwriter. So, it was like, I think the biggest thing was I wanted to put everything that was inside my head like into something tangible. So I was hearing these like full productions going on with instrumentations, like everything figured out. I just wanted to have that put down somewhere. And I also went to some studios back home, and I just had this vibe from the guys that was like, we can make you a big star, and like I can make you famous, and kind of this thing of wanting to profit off of like a young girl star. So I was just like, screw that. Let's learn how everything works, every single button, every single thing. And
so you don't need.
So I don't need them. Yeah. That was kind of that was a reaction, I think, from that world. And so that's production, I think, especially as a woman. I think it's just important, and it's really benefited my music, I feel like. But on the flip side of that, I think sometimes it gets so far into the technical world that the creative mindset can get a little, I don't know. Lost, exactly. Yeah. I don't know how you feel about that, but I just, I tend to be like, I'm an audio engineer. And then it's kind of like, well, I'm also a songwriter too. And I'm like writing everything down constantly and getting inspiration everywhere. So I think, but
the same thing. Where sometimes I would be kind of waves where I'm like doing a lot of creative production, and then because of the nature of projects, moving towards mixing, and then moving towards like mastering, and really focusing on gritty details. And then after that, I'll be like in a session with session musicians, and then it would just kind of click, and I'll be like, oh, I really need to focus on going back and doing music, because that's what I am motivated by. And even though I find the technical stuff really interesting, kind of from an intellectual standpoint, it's not what I enjoy the most.
No.
So trying to keep that focused is
Yeah. I mean, I think also just focusing on being a good musician as well is super huge. Like my friends were talking to me about this and asking like, what are the things that make you successful in this industry? And one of the top ones was like, just be insanely good at whatever instrument you have.
Yeah, discipline.
But discipline, and that's hard because I've heard the whole like saying like, oh, you drum like a producer or something, and it's like, that's true, but why not?
There's two sides to it as well.
That's true.
There are. Like, a jack of all trades, but a master of none is still better than a master of one.
Which I think is true
is a producer's
when
job.
When applied to today's industry. I think everybody has to wear many hats.
Yeah.
But it's also like, I know so many people too who are like, I mean, Tame Impala was one example, who are just like insane at multiple instruments, also producing, also touring, also performing. And it's like, how do you do it? Yeah. Where's the specialization these days? I don't know. Like maybe just in mastering, that's it.
Yeah, and well, I guess I don't know, but I'd assume he doesn't mix his own tracks.
Maybe.
Really, from a time perspective, it seems like that wouldn't make sense.
I would, gosh, if I were him, I would.
No, that's immediately. As soon as I can, that's gone. Like,
That's true. But how about you, Sebastian? Can
about why I ended up?
Yeah. Where there are two hosts in this.
So I had moved to Germany 2018 to do my Abitur, so the last 2 years of high school, and that was kind of a choice that I made because I was growing up in a village in South England, and I wasn't happy with the situation I was in socially or geographically, where I'd have to get my parents to drive me 15, 20 minutes to the closest place with the train station, so then I could go to the city where my friends were, which would be another 20 minutes by train. So it's like, it wasn't a good situation socially, especially when you're that kind of age, where 15, 16, you're trying to start to go out. So I moved, and I was really, really happy with it. Loved Germany. I was in the south, which is a little more conservative than Berlin, but still great. And then when my parents moved not long after that to Berlin, to Charlottenburg. And then when COVID hit, I came here because it was a safe thing to do, because it was like, let's go to somewhere where family is. So that because it was literally in March, so it was the very, very beginning when people were still really freaking out and we're like, we don't know what's going to happen with this. So I moved here, and then we had the lockdown, and I was still planning on doing electrical engineering and computer science in German, probably also in Berlin, but that was kind of coincidental.
Wow, that's very different.
Yeah, but then my German exam was cancelled because of COVID, so I couldn't get the qualification I needed. And that left me with a year of nothing really. So I ended up working at a part-time job, and then all the time I wasn't working, I was just doing music. Ableton had a free trial that was, I originally learned on Logic, but then Ableton in lockdown had I think a 90-day free trial that was extended to 180 days for the full suite. And I was just spending all day, every day, all of my free time doing that because it's what I enjoyed doing. And then after 6 months or so, I was just thinking like, why am I aiming at electrical engineering when this is clearly what I would do if I had the choice? And I do have the choice. So that was the decision behind it. And I also knew that if I went to music and it didn't work out, I could go back. But if I went to electrical engineering, it would work out because it's super safe, and I would never go back to music.
So you had kind of a plan A, plan B in mind then?
Yeah, and weirdly, this was the plan B that has become the plan A.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it, and really happy with Berlin, and I'm sure I'll be here longer than the degree I'm doing, that we're doing, and like wherever it ends, I'm sure I'll stay here for longer than that. And yeah, that's pretty much how I've ended up where I am.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. Kind of weird. I didn't fully know the whole story, so it's great to hear that on here finally. But I think the whole plan B, plan A thing is like really interesting. I remember watching a video with G-Eazy back. I was very into G-Eazy.
Back when G-Eazy was doing interviews.
Back when he was, when he had like the When It's Dark Out album, and I was just like, I was like 13.
Is that the one with the
jacket? Yeah. And I was 13, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, whoa, G-Eazy.
I want to do music.
But he was like, no plan B. Like music has to be the only plan. I think, and then Pharrell actually has a different thing. He's like always, have a plan B and go to school, because he kind of didn't do that. So I think it's interesting, like the approach that some artists have. Of course, I mean, Pharrell, the level of success he has is insane. So in his mind, the advice of having a plan B and keeping the education there, or having a job that could be a backup, that's probably going to get you a pretty steady income, like computer science or like computer programming or anything with kind of a higher demand. I feel like, but then there are also these people who just feel like there should be no other option. You got to go all or nothing. I don't know.
I've never been that kind of person. I've always been plan A, plan B.
Really? Yeah.
Security. I don't know. I feel like there's something I like to have in my life, so I'm not super stressed all the time. And then, I don't know. It's never even really been a thought where I've been like, oh, I have to. Obviously, I'm all in on music, but there is still the idea that if it does fail, I can do other things, and I should keep that in mind.
Interesting.
Are you like that? Or?
I don't know. I think lately I've been just like, there's no other thing. There's no other why, what else? But I also think that there have been times when I'm, especially moving here and it just being such a different environment, I was like, why can't I do something easier? Why can't I just tell people I'd love to just tell people I'm an audio engineer and then whatever. Because everybody's an engineer these days, which is really cool.
Necessary as well.
And super necessary, And I mean, we are too. So that's pretty cool. We just get that as like a product. But I think it's just kind of like, what else? But I think, but music leads you to fashion, to design, to art,
the whole creative world,
video, to like, that's what led me here, to doing this amazing podcast that we're doing now. So I think, as long as you don't get distracted and then that limits the creative part of the music. I think that music is and it's what everybody wants to do. Like so many actors are like musicians now, and I'm like,
It's like not the same skill set. There's a lot of hours that needs to go into that.
I don't know. It's like, sometimes I wonder, I'm like, did you just kind of get into that profession to gain a audience? And then that's kind of a cynical view, but it is kind of, in my mind, for a lot of people's minds, it's like the thing, like music. It's like this but nobody knows how it works. No normal person. I didn't know about panning like left and right. I didn't know about stereo until I was like 14.
Yeah,
I
you
was
don't
like,
notice.
what is-
And then at some point
Yes.
you hear a song and you're like, why is something's on one side?
Or ghostwriting, like the concept of that.
Didn't know about that
Just
until
maybe like 16 years old. I was
last few years probably that clicked. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, most big artists not only don't write the lyrics to their songs, but will have full songs provided to them by producers
exactly right.
that then they'll perform and put their name on it.
Yeah. Or when you hear about a song that was like, oh, it was going to go to Rihanna, but then it ended up going to
Like Ed Sheeran.
Exactly.
Or something weird like that.
It's really
which has
random.
happened. Yeah.
But it's super crazy. Yeah. I don't know. Fascinating.
It also changes your view of artists, I feel like.
It does.
Which for me, I haven't heard about it from artists where I feel like it's really changed my opinion of them. Mostly it's pop artists where it's like, I don't really care if Post Malone is writing what he's singing. Like that doesn't matter to me. I'll still enjoy the song. But if it's something more, I don't know, folky or where the brand is built around a personality and that the writing is really genuine and intimate, then I'd have more of an issue with it, which definitely happens as well. But
yeah. But you also have to know that the artist, I mean, Post Malone back in like his early career was still a really talented like song maker. I mean,
Right.
I wouldn't really label him as a
still good.
songwriter. I mean, he is,
Yeah.
but I've seen old videos of him. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's a damn good guitar player. And he was making up kind of funny, weird songs from the beginning, but still really talented.
even did you see the sorry to interrupt, continue.
No, it's fine. No,
okay.
that's it.
Did you see the clip that went viral with him and Lil Baby, and then I think someone else was there as well,
No, I didn't.
where he was listening to a song and was being like, we should sample this, and you can clearly see where even if he didn't write his own songs, he's still chosen them, and he still has very much the same taste that he has the like creativity.
Yeah.
Like it very much lines up, and I mean, I would love to see that song happen. It seemed cool. I'm not a massive fan of Post Malone just because it's not really what I listen to.
Yeah.
But sounded good. It was a cool idea, and yeah.
Well, I think that's what they've been teaching us like in classes lately. You know, like you aren't really paid for your skill set, you're paid for your taste. Like there was this like concept of, especially as a producer, like you're paid for your ears, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm always like earplugs at concerts.
Yeah.
I'm like this
That's
is
why
how
no
I
insurance covers it for musicians.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, maybe it's. Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah, I think it is definitely taste, and there's several. I think Pharrell said that in interviews, and Kenny Beats as well. It's been like you're really being paid for your taste.
Yeah. So like in
And-
Post Malone's case, it's you know his taste is what is driving everything.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'd also be curious to see when we were talking about Taylor Swift earlier and her new album, or people like that, where I wonder how much of her brand is, I think, fairly based around her having written it, but then everyone knows that she doesn't write all of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how much she's still like trying to keep up the image. Like I feel like Drake is really, really trying to keep up the image of him writing them, and like it's open knowledge that he doesn't.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I don't know how it is with Taylor
Drake
Swift.
has a lot of memes surrounding him though.
Which I don't know how much is
Drake's
like built
the kind
by
of
his
guy.
team.
Like I don't know.
And then he leans into it, and then for me it takes a bit of the fun out of it. I'm
It
like,
like
oh.
yeah, when he leans into it, it actually backfires.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when he plays along with it, it's actually
It's just weirder because it's already built on him being cringy, and then he leans into it and it makes it even cringier. And you're just like, ugh. I have lots of opinions on Drake, but we don't need to.
yeah. All right. Well, back to Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
I mean, she's also with the Taylor's version of stuff.
Yeah.
Done some producing of her own, which is interesting.
But did she produce at her own, or did she hire her own producers to then release it independently?
I'm not sure,
But I would assume
think,
it's the
but
latter.
she did a lot of. I remember hearing that she was doing a lot of the like production things,
Yeah.
which was unusual. But I also, it's funny. I was listening to 22, like the original version.
Oh right. Yeah.
And it's so hard because I was looking between the Taylor version and the original. And there's something about that original, like the sound, like the era, it hits different. It's like so much more powerful to me.
But do you think that's because you heard it when you were a kid and it's
That's
nostalgia?
also true. Yeah.
Or maybe it's because they had I mean, as much as I don't like to say it, label-backed teams typically are going to be more reliable. And then also it's probably a moment where she was making it and she was really feeling the emotions, and that will have at some level developed in the 10 years there were between those albums. So I think it's probably a combination of things. And
True.
I wonder if kids now that are listening to Taylor's version is the first thing they're hearing.
And then they're
listen
going to
back
think
and be like, oh, this sounds
about
old. Sounds like it's not made properly.
Wow.
Don't know.
That's interesting. No, I never thought of that, but that's a really good point, I think.
Yeah. I've said just now said some maybe negative things about her, but she's also done a lot of like the independence thing. She's been a big spokesperson for. She also, I think, I might be wrong about this, or if there's some joke that I'm not in on, but is supposedly really good at like cybersecurity. And she's like known about like people who kind of know about cybersecurity and know about music know that she's like really on top of it and very knowledgeable about that.
In terms of her stuff leaking, or
about like she's really into like the technical part of it where she understands how software works and stuff for that.
Oh, like Doc?
I need to fact check that.
Wondering.
But I think it's her, and like that surprised me so much. I was like, oh, it's really out of character.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think at that point of that level of fame, I think you're gonna have to get any security, any kind of
And the business changes entirely. Like there's that, I don't remember what the video is. I'll find it and put it
in the link.
But there's a video where it's basically like 5 music videos in one, where she's in a bathtub with a bunch of like diamonds, and then she's like in a cage with a lion or something, and a bunch of stuff. And like, there's no way that making something with that budget and putting it on YouTube for free actually brings back the money. But then it's brand building, because then when you do something like that, you're like, oh, she has the biggest budget in music, or whatever the situation is. So it's like a whole different game, I think, to us with our borrowed mics and
oh gosh. But then again, there's the tour, the recent, it's like not drama, but her tour, the Eras, it's called, it's sold out. And also people have been having tons of trouble, like everybody freaked out. Live Nation, like I think issued an apology or something.
Right.
And it was just this crazy mess about getting tickets.
Was it because the venues were too small, or because like there was such a demand that sites were crashing and stuff?
That's, I think, what it was.
Oh, okay,
the latter. Yeah. So that's just an interesting thing. And you said with The Weeknd also, we were talking about earlier.
That was different.
That was different. That was venues.
Because the venues were too small, so he delayed it.
Same, well, not similar, but same.
Right.
Lacey, kind of, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think different. In a more professional way. But.
Yes. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
I was, by the way, that's kind of a few episodes ago now, but I was looking at Steve Lacy, who was playing the Observatory in San Diego, which is like the venue I know. It's a small venue. It's in San Diego.
Land?
What?
No, that's in LA. Wasn't the Observatory where there's like the, never mind.
Oh no, but it's the Observatory North Park, it's called, but it's shout out, hometown, home city. But yeah, I was just kind of like, I saw like First Aid Kit there. Like I saw like this kind of sister folk band. I'm like, oh my God, how is this world famous now person going to pull that? But anyway, I think
it's because his tour managers, I don't know if he had the same ones, but assuming he did, the last tour he did must have been very small. Because he was attached to Odd Future, so people knew who he was. And he had like produced for Kendrick, and he had produced for several big names. But he was still like, people who are into music know about him, but now everyone knows who he is. I know, exactly. Everyone on TikTok.
True. But sorry, back to Taylor Swift. That was a bit of a tangent.
Yeah,
but
tangent.
Yeah. I mean, just it's always going to end up being Steve Lacy.
All roads lead back.
Roads lead back. Yeah, but I just thought that was really weird. But also, in terms of relevance, you said that that many people you know are going to Taylor's.
I don't know anyone who's bought or tried to buy tickets for that. And she had a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't like the day that she released, but it was like a week later or something. She had all top 10 songs on the Billboard 100, like every single slot.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear the album on like Spotify curated or Apple Music curated playlists or on Tidal playlists or on radio. I didn't hear it like in shops or anything. I had heard the Lana Del Rey feature where she's like lightly breathing, has some harmonies.
Lightly breathing.
Because I specifically searched for it. But then, I mean, I was talking to a lot of people about it, and there were only a few that had even listened to the album. So I don't know where this audience is. I don't know where it's coming from.
I don't know either. I can't sing a song off the top of my head, like from the album at all. No. But from like 1989, the one she had, that was like...
I've never even listened to that album front to back, and I could probably...
Yeah, exactly right. So there's just, I don't know, it's interesting. I think actually this new wave of like Phoebe Bridgers, Lizzie McAlpine, like these singer-songwriters, maybe like to me, they seem more relevant now. Like that's what my girlfriends are listening to. And, you know, like, I don't know, I just think Taylor Swift's great and doing cool things, and obviously bringing back a lot of nostalgia with the new eras, but
I feel like she's one of the last of the pop stars, where, I mean, Drake is definitely, Taylor Swift, I feel like The Weeknd as well, were they got massive in the early 2010s or even a little bit earlier, and that was still at the point where it was like people were aiming for that superstardom. And even if you get really big people like, I mean, Doja Cat's a good example now, where like she's a massive name, but it's not the same. She's not playing like stadiums in Europe and stuff like that. So I think that era has gone away, which personally I feel like it's a little bit sad, because I think there's such even Michael Jackson, with all his kind of posthumous controversy, he was such an icon to a point that, like, to an unbelievable level. And I don't think we're ever going to be able to get back to that unless something seriously changes with the way that the internet is built.
But
I think it's good. I like having the small artists, and it feels like more of a community.
I agree. I'm a huge fan proponent of those. But then again, like Billie Eilish, wouldn't you say she's in the same arena as like the Drakes or the Michael Jacksons or the Taylor Swifts? Is she in that same club?
I don't think so. I don't know what her numbers are like, and I think they're probably massive. And I saw her at a festival in 2018, and it was huge crowd, like probably a bigger crowd than Martin Garrix, who closed the festival. But I feel like the aura around her is much, I mean, it's definitely built like that on purpose, but much more down to earth, and less like this is this mysterious godlike figure to follow.
That's interesting.
Also, her fan base is super young. I feel like a lot of people who are like, I don't think a lot of people over 30 are listening to Happier Than Ever.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's definitely, I feel like it's gotten younger. Her crowd has gotten younger as the years went on.
Or we've just gotten older and it stayed the same. Because, I mean, when, it's so bad, I don't know the name of the album, but the one that was massive, where it was all black and green, was the kind of color code for the whole thing. It had Bad Guy and everything on.
Oh, I didn't listen to that one as much.
Oh, okay.
It was like
maybe I'm wrong then.
The yellow. I'm terrible with names, but like it's the
one with the ladder on.
Ladder. That was like the OG one, and then it was the one between, and then it's like Happier Than Ever. But I was looking at her site actually, and the merch that she had just reminded me so much of like the Taylor Swift, like back in the day, like the Taylor Swift merch, like the perfumes and like.
You mean the new stuff she has?
I mean her perfume is a little more sophisticated, but it was like there were like blankets and little like fluffy things. Oh my gosh, I'm always getting calls.
Is it important?
What?
Is it important?
No, it's my mother, but it's a podcast. Love you, Mom. Fine. Shout out. Sorry. No, but it just reminded me so much of like that Taylor Swift, that as soon as you get into that big artist territory, you just start like flooding merch. And I was like, also, is this stuff sustainable? Like it's, I mean,
from an environmental standpoint, or from a business?
You kind of, as soon as artists get to this certain point, I feel like they're like, oh, let's put all of the merch, let's do all of the things, let's have this whole website. And same for Taylor Swift back in the day. It just felt very like similar to me. Yeah, I was like,
I mean, there's different ways to. Coldplay, we were talking about a little bit earlier.
Oh yeah,
did the whole environmentally friendly tour, and there was an interview with Nile Rodgers, was it? Mentioned?
I'm
Anyway,
not sure. But
with Zane Lowe and Rick Rubin, where they were talking a lot about environmentally friendly touring, which is becoming a thing. But that's, first of all, that's only accessible to big artists because there's such a big overhead for touring anyway. To add that on top of it is unreasonable for independent artists, mostly. But then it's going to be interesting to see where these like lower, I don't want to say lower level, but like lower audience, like smaller audience artists like Phoebe Bridgers or like Biba Doobie and stuff like that, where it's like they're well known but not like massive. Where they lean into that and whether they kind of cap out at a certain level where they're like, okay, I don't really want to reach beyond this audience. I feel like this is my community that I've cultivated, and being a superstar isn't as enticing because there aren't anymore as many role models that are like that. And
true.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think with some artists as well, like I know Holly Humberstone had Maddie Healy from the 1975 on a few of her songs, and I can't say her name, the Biba Doobie one. Yeah, she's awesome. I love her songs. She's also signed to the same label as the 1975 and Dirty Hit. So, along with a few of my other favorite artists like No Rome. And I don't know, I think there's like these small artists, but they're kind of getting a little, obviously not piggybacking. I think that's a bad term, but they're kind of like, they're able to kind of
weave a bit.
Yes, to weave between worlds a bit and kind of touch that like side of music a little bit, that huge like mega fame, but then they can kind of go back into their original fan base and very
like Arctic Monkeys did a really good job of that.
They did too, and I had friends who were looking for tickets, and they were like waking up at you got tickets.
Thanks
too.
to again Jack, who's on the next episode.
Oh gosh,
I was at work.
He's getting
so
more
I couldn't
famous
do
than
it.
we are.
He
Honestly,
is,
this is it's like all roads lead back to Steve Lacy and Jack.
And Jack Deasy. But he was on the website like refreshing, and it took several attempts. He was texting me. I was at work, and I was watching the drama happen. It was like, oh, we got kicked out of the website and everything. Yeah. And there was such demand for that. I only know two people that got tickets.
Julia, my roommate.
Julia and Jack.
Yeah,
and then me. So,
exactly. But people were so cool. Like I remember Julia got tickets for people because they couldn't do it.
That's
it was like such a nice little community, thing. Like, hey, I got you. I got the ticket.
That's what I mean. Where like the demand is so high, they're a massive band, but because they also had their hit album, which I feel like was AM mostly, and then slowly kind of, and it seems intentional to me because when you're not making a hit, like that they've slowly gone back into kind of something that they're really passionate about and really trying to like, they gained the massive audience and then selected the ones that are more in line with their kind of ideology in the world they're creating.
That's cool.
Maybe. I don't know, that's a perception I got from the last album, and the press tour and everything.
Gosh, I need to listen more to the Arctic Monkeys, but
it's great.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, I think that's also a really good thing for artists to do, and I think I can't think off the top of my head like what are other examples of who did that, but maybe
I think Tyler Creator might. With his next, whatever he's doing next, he might kind of shrink it a little bit because
I have that same feeling too. Because it was like every single person in my high school was like golf. Like it was just wearing and they were all like Tyler the Creator. Like
I think it hit later here. Because I feel like Flower Boy was the one that got a lot of people who were into music. Like people who were a little bit into music heard Flower Boy and they were like, that blew it up.
It was gone from
and then Eagle got a Grammy for like best. It was still like urban music or something weird. It wasn't, or rap or something where it should have been pop. But that was a massive album, and even with Call Me If You Get Lost. But it seems that he's trying to get a little more niche and bring it down again.
I mean, he's like creatively pretty genius.
Yeah,
and
across
he knows
the board for a lot of things.
And he's not afraid to. But sometimes I wonder if that's just kind of a front. Like if this over the top, like, look at me, like I'm the shit. Like I feel like he does that a lot, but maybe
he does it in a very wholesome way as well. But he's still like the guy that got famous from Loiter Squad, which is I love it, but it's garbage TV. Like it's just guys hanging around having fun and like videoing it.
Give you a birthday on my birthday with a birthday.
Yeah.
Like, it's just absolute chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's also such a part of, that's a really big thing with meme culture and just how so close it is. And Vine and that whole era, I feel like it almost is more important to us, maybe people in our generation or in our few years, like when artists had kind of an imprint on the Vine world or the meme world, it's like there's almost even more nostalgia it adds to kind of the
especially
whole picture.
The Vine world. I feel like it's a little like
sure.
Doja Cat again, great example of someone who has
she's amazing
on TikTok all the time, super successful through that and through music. But I feel like the connection isn't as close there as stuff you saw on Vine or from like old days YouTube.
That's true.
Or even it's also nice to see growth from artists, because I feel like she did TikTok. She started doing TikTok more intensely when she was already big, and obviously, I don't know what the song's called. I'm a cow, bitch. I'm a cow. Bitch. I'm a cow.
I love your face when you say it. You're like actually giving it deep
is it
thought.
Cow? I'm a cow, or moo, or I don't know what it is. Anyway.
Oh yeah.
That was pretty memey,
but it was like on purpose.
Yeah.
You know,
and it was from.
It knew what it was doing.
Recent.
Yeah,
it was like,
also recent.
Yeah.
But she had a funny thing where she was saying like, "I'm done with music. And
then didn't,
like over."
Wasn't done.
Yeah, and I was like, I wonder if this was like some kind of publicist like.
I don't think it
steering
is.
Her back into the.
I think if she's going the way I think she's going, I'm really excited about it.
Because, really?
Yeah. I haven't talked to anyone about this because I think most of people.
First to hear it, guys.
Yeah, most of the people I talk to aren't that interested in Doja Cat, because I'm very much like in the hip hop R&B world, which she like leans into, but there's a lot of like, she's not a rapper, she's like a pop star, which I'm like, I mean, she raps a lot, yeah, and she's good at it, but whatever. You could see from where she started, where she was it was like just goofy and fun and like having a good time, and then kind of gradually became more pop and more pop, and you could see from her like appearances on interviews and stuff, or even for music videos, where it was becoming very like sleek and controlled. And even like physically, I think she made some comments about like having to try to be like slim and stuff for audiences, and you could see that developing. And then recently she had that thing where she was like, I'm not going to do music anymore, and then like, I don't know, a month or two later, her song with Post Malone came out, and I didn't like it personally, but it was super, super pop. It was like commercial and felt a bit flat. And then she, like more on the fashion end of things, has been doing stuff that's like pretty interesting, pretty weird, definitely not commercial. And I think it's more her doing what she wants to do. And I think she might have burned some bridges or like cut some ties in the music industry intentionally so that she can do her own thing.
I mean, rock on in that way.
Yeah.
Like
some of the stuff was vaguely Grace Jonesy, and I was like, this could be where she's like clearly not trying to be like feminine sexy, but trying to just be like interesting and have a personality.
Yeah.
It seems if it's going that way, which I hope it is, I'm excited for it.
No, yeah, that's a really interesting point. I mean, I think I really think she's insanely amazing. I mean, her personality is like, yeah, obviously she's famous, like with that whole thing.
Yeah.
But maybe she's
it's like Lady Gaga, where you're like, yeah, she was going to be.
Yeah, it kind of goes into that, like Lady Gaga, Nicki Minaj, like those crazy out of this world, like art, just pure artists. Or Cardi B,
where I think her music is not that great, but her personality is so
like,
intense that it like overcomes it.
Yeah, how would you not be famous at this point? Yeah. So I'm interested too, but that's an interesting point of also like, sometimes you have to burn bridges to do what you want to do. Yeah. Like that's some valuable advice.
Controversial
a bit
character. But Kanye also has been a bit too loud about doing that at times.
Oh my gosh.
But I mean, looking at it more from the perspective of a few months ago before all the anti-Semitic comments and stuff.
Oh gosh.
Which I think is still a bit fresh personally for me to be comfortable commenting on, apart from obviously disagree with them.
Yeah.
I think he was super loud about being constricted by the music industry and trying to get out of that a lot.
But then again, he has his imprint on everything. Like he has, he's like
one of the biggest fashion labels in the world.
Foundations of, his genre. Like,
yeah. Oh, 100%.
I mean,
the last
we were
like
just
20
talking,
years.
yeah, we were just talking about, the artists like Diplo or Pharrell or something, where they just have so much influence. They've done songs that we didn't even know they did.
Yeah.
And him as well. So it's just kind of like, it's hard. I mean, similar, not obviously the same thing, but with the Michael Jackson, all of that.
What's the art versus artist?
The art versus the artist separation, the heavy ultimate question.
Especially in hip hop, I feel like there's a lot of, well, I don't know. Actually, I think it leaks into most genres. There's a lot of controversial figures.
True.
That have great music, like inarguably great. Like I get with Kanye West, I get why a lot of people, like neither of my parents like his stuff, and I get it. Like it's not their music, but I feel like there's some objective quality to it where you're like, okay, this is the impact it's had. This is why it's technically impressive. This is where it came from and why it's like, it's something that no one else had done. And it's inarguably good, whether you like it or not. Yeah. And I mean, there's also stuff like that where I don't like certain things that are inarguably good.
I also wouldn't call him I don't know. I think some people would call him a genius. I
call him a creative genius.
A creative, sorry, yeah. I don't know, creative genius maybe, just put that out there. But I don't know, I think that sometimes that level of proficiency in something or just mastery of something, good at what you do or something, and obviously aside from all of the terrible stuff he said, that also just pushes people, that's uncomfortable. Like it's an uncomfortable...
Seeing someone at that level?
Yeah. I think it's just in general uncomfortable. Really?
Yeah, where he's one of the few there's a couple artists or producers where I'll hear a song and then immediately I'll take out my phone and I'll go to their artist page and or my library of their artist page and just shuffle everything and just listen to them for like hours. And I'll be like, and then I'll get home and just be like, I want to make music now.
Wow.
So it's almost the opposite, I think.
Interesting. I mean, I guess more uncomfortable for like the people around and like working with maybe like the team, and hard to deal with like the character.
I see what you mean.
Being a character. Yeah.
There's even people that aren't that successful
but people tolerate it. Oh yes, that's true. But the fact that people tolerate it because of the level of artistic genius that the person has.
Yeah, which is a little bit earned. There's some level to it where it's like, okay, you're difficult to work with, but you're indispensable to this process.
It's like a savant, kind of like socially awkward, that similar in kind of in the same vein, like, okay, fine, just let him, let her or him or them. But
there's also still a line to be crossed. Where
there
you're difficult
is
to work
with him, especially, with Kanye, it's like,
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think it's pretty crazy stuff and how that just brings down. But then also, I mean, that's linked to Adidas with the recent controversy as well.
With dropping him or
there was like all this weird stuff with that, but that also goes back to like the heavy connection that artists have with the fashion industry, and he has such a huge
the weirdly heavy connection listeners have with their artists' political opinions. Where there's a level of which is like, why are you listening to Kanye West for his thoughts on politics when the reason he's famous is for his production ability and arguably not even his rapping ability? Like he's like, if you're talking about like lyrical ability, I wouldn't put him in top 10, but the production is so insanely amazing that it puts the music to that level. But he's not a figure of political intelligence, and it's weird that people even look to him for that. Yeah. Not that discounts what he said as okay to do, because he shouldn't be looked at like that, but yeah, it's interesting that people have that connection.
But that's also where, artists become these kind of godlike figures. I mean, even Billie Eilish, I think, has also said in some interviews about the influence she has over just things in general. Like she has to be so careful, the whole like with great power comes great responsibility thing. But I mean, when these artists are created, these huge artists, they're just going to have the most insane effect over everybody. Yeah. And thoughts way beyond music, which is really interesting.
Which I don't like.
No, I don't like either.
It can be good at times, but mostly I think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, there needs to be kind of a separation between like what you're, how you're getting your input. Yeah. You know, like I have this for music, and then I have this source for politics, and everything else.
Important separation.
Yeah, you need to have a little bit, but that's also the thing. I mean, I think music is a lot of commentary on politics as well, so that's fair to look at. But I think it's interesting, kind of. You need to be able to separate, though, for sure. Yeah.
We've done 45 minutes, which we were planning to do like 25.
How easy was that? That was so...
The guests are making all the problems, I think. That was easy.
Wow. You heard it here, folks. The guests are making all the problems. Thanks so much, Sebastian. And thanks again for having me on and just asking to do this podcast. As well.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for coming on. When I sent you the text, I sent you a long text because I wanted to make sure it's all the information. Yeah. And I was really happy you said yes. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, it's been a blast. So just hope we can gain more of a following and get some more guests. We have a few really cool guests lined up. Yeah. So we're excited about that.
Yeah. And next week we have Jack Deasy and Lucie Frank.
Yes.
On for their single release. And there's another episode that we had some recording problems with that we're going to see if it's salvageable, and that's a mistake totally on our end.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it and looking forward to seeing where this goes over the next few months. Looking at some stuff for December for Christmas. Do some Christmas-oriented
activities. Yes, we want to do a Christmas special. Yeah, who knows who we're going to have on for that. Idea. But it'll be lots of fun.
Yeah, for our more relaxed tone as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It'll be the start. Yes, thank you guys so much. And we'll see you next week.
Yep.
Awesome.